Hello degenerates, and welcome to the official Duck Hunt Recovery Guide. Now before we jump into the guide itself, I do have a very important announcement that I do need to talk about. For those of you who are unaware, there's an event in CFL that's called Come to Papa 3. Now this is going to be a big regional event that is happening in my hometown of Orlando, and with this event I've been helping out with securing some players to be on our compendium, in this case Zaki, Rido, and T and Shuton. Right now we are currently raising our first goal, which is for Zaki and Rido, which is to raise $1,800. We've reached $201 as of today. We still have a month left, and once we finish this goal, then we will be able to unlock the goal to fly out T and Shuton. The deadline for both of these goals is April 21st, so we do need to make sure we fill these up before then. And if you want to help contribute to these goals, you can directly donate to any one of these goals. You can also buy this merchandise for Come to Papa 3. And recently, just today, we have introduced our Team Japan line of merchandise, which includes this poster, which was designed by Muppet, and also a shirt with the same exact design. Definitely, this is a huge passion project of one of my good friends. His name is Papa Mink. It's an event that has been long in the waiting. It was considered by many to be the best event in all of Florida when Come to Papa 2 came around. So we're definitely looking to make a big comeback here. Right now, we've already surpassed the number of entrants that we had for Come to Papa 2, and from only now on, it's only growing bigger. And some quick things about this event that do really make it unique. So this is going to have a 24-hour venue, and all pools are actually be run in round-robin format if there are over 64 entrants. So this means that if you come here, you are guaranteed unable to go 0-2. You are going to play 5 sets guaranteed, and who knows, you may be even in one of the brackets here with one of these Japanese players if we do fulfill these goals, or another top player that you could be interested in playing against. So if that sounds interesting to you, definitely come check out this event, come support the compendium, and come register too. Flights to Orlando tend to be pretty cheap, and I guarantee you'll get no better practice than this event here if you want as much time as you possibly can get in a tournament setting. So we are here today to talk about Duck Hunt's recovery. Duck Hunt's recovery, out of everybody in the entire cast, probably has some of the most misconceptions about it out of anybody that you can play. With Duck Hunt, most people generally think that he's a very easy character to exploit offstage. There's not too much that he can do, and he's pretty helpless. In Smash 4, you did need to know how to play around his can in order to get him to that state. If you had good control over his can, it was actually very hard to actually get into any form of being able to edgeguard him. So that was one thing that he always had to his advantage, where you really had to know how to interact and to deal with it in order to edgeguard him. Now, that is still true here, but he does have the ability now to act out of his up B, which does add a whole new depth and dimension to it, which makes his recovery actually very good in this game compared to what he had before, and I'll be sure to explain more of it in way more detail as we go on. Alright, so the first thing that we need to do to talk about Duck Hunt's recovery is talk about his main recovery move, which is Duck Jump. This is his up B. What happens is the duck just picks up on the dog's back and just brings him up. So something that's kind of interesting is when you do start the up B, he does move a little bit forward in the direction he's facing. So if I start on the ground, you'll notice that he moved up a little bit. That turnaround was just some input, but yeah, he does a little drift forward whenever you do it. So keep that in mind. You're not going to rise up directly in place. You will drift a little bit forward every single time that you do start it up. So if that affects your spacing at all, try to keep that in mind. And then you can move left or right. And that was what he could do back in Smash 4, but now he gained the ability to act out of it. So, starting on frame 51, you can now do an aerial, buffer an air dodge out of it, directional air dodge, and then of course you can do your specials out of it as well. So, by having this ability, it actually gives him a lot more mix-ups and improves his recovery game significantly. Even people that are able to go deep off stage against him, he actually has a huge advantage now that I'll get into more later, that this thing really opens him up and just makes his recovery a lot better. Of course, there's a lot of conditions that will affect things, so I'll get into those more later. The main things you need to know is that the other thing too that changed from Smash 4 is he does have a lot more drift off of it. If you, that was about I would say 2/3 of the way up. He can now drift back to his original position, where before his drift was very minimal. But now he can just drift a lot more. He just reverses momentum a lot quicker than he could back in Smash 4. So that's important. Now, as far as the height's concerned, we'll go to a zoomed out perspective of this. So without air dodging, you're going to go about 8.5 feet tall, or 8.5 blocks. That is the height that you go. One more time. That's 8.5. Now, the thing is, you can air dodge up as well, which does extend your recovery. So instead of having 8.5, you actually have 9.5. And there you go. That's the full 9.5 right there. And that's what you want to be focusing on if you don't think you're going to be making the ledge. Remember to air dodge at that very last moment, that 9th flap. That's when you want to air dodge up, so that way you can extend your recovery. So as I talked about earlier, you can drift left or right with Duck Hunt. So the reason why that this is important for him to especially store that momentum is because of the main way you're going to be recovering. So since Duck Hunt actually does have a lot of projectiles, you can actually control these while recovering. More specifically, the can, Clay Pigeon, it's way too laggy for you to ever use that, but theoretically you could as well. So when you jump and throw out the can, you want that can to stay above you and covering you the entire time. If you watch a lot of Smash 4 pros or any Smash 4 player that main Duck Hunt, you'd see them do this a lot. So you throw out the can, and then you have the can just go right above you. So from what you could see there, Duck Hunt is moving forward and the can is moving forward too. The way that you achieve this is you first hit forward, and then you just keep tapping forward as well. But the thing is, you need to alternate it between pinging the can and pressing forward. So this is kind of what it visually looks like what you're doing with Duck Hunt if you're up Bing and you're hitting the can at the same time. You need to get in this rhythm of hitting forward and hitting the can at the same time. So then this is what the final product is going to look like. So can. And that's the thing. That is where you can mess up. If you ping the can and you hit forward at the same time, you're going to get a Clay Pigeon, and that's going to cancel your duck jump. And when that happens, you're just going to automatically SD. After you do a duck jump and you do an aerial, you will go into free fall like that. So you need to be very careful about pinging the can and using that up B at the same time, so that way you don't buffer an aerial. So the main reason why you're going to be throwing out this can and be recovering like this is so that way you can discourage people from going off stage and edge guarding you. The other thing too is if they hit the can and they hit it back at you, then the can explosion actually is going to save you. For example, if we put both of ourselves at like 100%, let's say I put myself at 62. So then she hits me, then I'm going to be sent away, or if I hold in, I get to be sent more vertically. So let's look at those trajectories real quick. Actually, wait, I don't think I can see myself. So if I hold in, that's how high I go. Notice that I'm going mostly vertical, and that gives me a second chance to recover. If I DI out, then I'm basically dead. So that's the one thing you want to do. You want to make sure you're DIing it to your opponent, so then that way you get the best angle possible for yourself to recover. You want to be focusing on being sent up and up in this case. This is actually a big change from Smash 4 2. As you guys should know by this point with Duck Hunt is that his can sends you in the direction that you're facing, so on the direction of the can. So if you're on the right side of the can, you're going to be sent to the right. If you're on the left side of the can, like Duck Hunt is here, then you're going to be sent left. So because of this, it's very rare for you to be sent in the same direction as your opponent, whereas back in Smash 4, the can knockback was determined by the direction you're facing. So when you would Canicide, you would fly in the right direction with Lucina in this example over here. But now because of that, we're sent in opposite directions. So this time it kind of resets the neutral, resets the edge guard attempt too. Sometimes it can lead to their opponent getting stage spiked, so that's the best case scenario. But most likely they're going to be sent back on stage and they're going to have another chance to edge guard you. So this means depending on what your percent is, it might be better for you to go high, it might be better for you to try and recover low again. But you really need to see what your situation is after that Canicide attempt, if they come up and edge guard you like that, to determine what the next steps are. Alright, so the next thing that we're going to be showing off is we're going to show off how far Duck Hunt can go if you're always holding in one direction. Because the main thing that I want to show is how much drift you lose, or how much distance you lose by just doing the tapping method versus just pressing and holding. So if you just hold forward, this is how far you can go. You basically reach just about that 10 block mark, and that's when you stop. That's basically when it stops. So now let's say you do the cam pings, and now you try to ping like that. Actually, you still got pretty close to that momentum. The amount that you lose, though... Let me see if I can start from here again. Yeah, as you can see, you're basically like one block behind from where you would be if you just pressed and holded it. So while it's not a major change in how much distance that you lose, it is still something you might notice. Like, it may be just enough that you won't be able to make that final distance. However, of course, you can make up for it by just air dodging at the end. So by doing that, you're able to get that full distance and even go past that 10 mark by doing a simple air dodge at the end. And then you might even be able to go a little bit farther by air dodging up and towards. So if you do the max distance one, yeah, you basically make it to that 10 mark. So you're gonna gain like another block by doing that air dodge at the end. If you're below the ledge, make sure you do that up thing. If you're like a little bit above or at equal distance, do forward. So then that way you can just go as low as you, even to the ledge that you possibly can. You want to make your hurt box reduced in size, so that way it makes it harder for them to hit you when you're recovering. So you want to go like that, so that way they don't have, like, let's say you air dodged up. You don't want them to have all that time to hit you. You want to reduce the amount of risk that you have while air dodging to the ledge. So keep that in mind whenever you're trying to recover to it. Alright, so the next thing that we're going to be talking about are the two main methods of recovering, either recovering high or recovering low. So the first thing that we're going to cover is what to do when to recover high. In this game, recovering high is actually a very good thing to mix up with, but due to the amount of low landing lag there is, it is going to be a little bit easier for opponents to punish this recovery method than it was in the past. However, you do get a lot more opportunities to mix it up and make it harder for your opponent to edge guard you, and I'll kind of show you what I mean. So when recovering high, you're going to want to throw out your can as high as you possibly can. So in this case, you run, and then you have the can fall before you. So in that case, that wasn't exactly how you wanted it, unless you wanted to keep the can right on top of you, so that way if they did try to go ahead and hit you, they would just get hit by the can explosion too. But most likely, that's what most of the time you're not trying to do that, just because if you're high up in the blast zone and the can explosion hits you and your opponent's heavier than you, then you're most likely going to die before they do, unless of course you're like at 20%, they're at 100, then they're just going to die, you'll live. In this case, you want the can to fall before you, just like that, and then you fall behind it. So then that way there, you can cover yourself before you get down. And the thing is, with the being up in the air that high, you do have a lot of time to change your drift as well. Not to mention, now that you can act out of it, you can just throw out an aerial as well. Unfortunately, you can't really fast fall the second that you do an up B. Actually, okay, I'll actually go there. It seems like there's actually phases where it's a little bit harder to fast fall versus times where it is. So the closer you are to the top, it appears the harder it is to fast fall it. So just figure out the timings for the fast fall out of doing an aerial for that, specifically with Nair. Nair is going to be your best option to land with just because it's a long lingering hitbox. So if somebody does come to you, you can usually stuff them out with this move. And with this game especially, you can combo off of Nair pretty well unless they're at a lower percent. So definitely, this is your go-to move when you're trying to land when coming high. So up B, Nair, fall down with it, and they might get hit by it. But most of the time, if you are recovering high, you're going to be a little bit too high for a Nair to really hit them, unless of course they're already chasing you up there. Then you have a better chance of getting that Nair to connect. And as you just saw there, if you are maneuvering in the can, please do make sure you are keeping track of how often you're hitting forward, so then that way you don't accidentally throw out a clay pigeon. That is literally the worst thing you can do in order to survive. The other thing that you can do to help yourself recover, this was definitely used a lot in Smash 4, is that you can drift to like kind of juke your opponent out, so that way you can just space right outside of attacks. And the other thing too is you can also air dodge back as well, so keep that in mind. That you can use that to just exponentially create more mix-ups as you're landing. So that's recovering high in a nutshell. Jump up, throw out your up B, make sure you have your can out first. Oh, that's too bad. Lucina's gonna be all over there. But yeah, main thing is throw out your can, and then have it fall above you, so then that way they have to guess if you're gonna go in front of it or if you're gonna go behind it. That's really the main mix-up that you're gonna have from this. So can, and now I'm gonna go behind. So now that way, they might think that I'm going that way, but I drifted behind them, so they did like a dash attack, they did an aerial, they whiffed, now I land safely, I can shield, and then I can use a shield can, so if they're aggressive, then I get a flurry punish off of that, and so on and so forth. Alright, so the next thing that we're going to be talking about is recovering low. So with recovering low, the main thing that you're trying to do is kind of the reverse of what you're doing recovering high, is you want to have that can out and then protecting you like that. So then that way they have to deal with the can before they can deal with you. So by having that can there, the main thing is that they do have a giant projectile that is swirling at them that they have to deal with. Of course, they can always hit it away. It's not really hard for them to do much about that. So if you're fighting a sword character, they're not going to have too much trouble dealing with it. And the other thing too is the can has this property where it actually just kind of homes in on Duck Hunt whenever it gets hit back to him. So with that being the case, when you do start the duck jump, just expect it to hit you at those points. And don't try to hit it because, like, let's say you're up being, now you up air there, now you can't grab ledge and you're dead. So you just need to take the hit, DI in, so then that way you get sent more vertically, and then you have another chance to recover. That's going to be your best course of action. The other thing that you're going to have to keep track of is, like, if they bear you, please be ready to tech that, wall jump that. That is a huge part of this game. But of course, because of the way that Canicide works, you're not going to be teching the walls off of Canicides that often. The other thing too is if they can't go too far, the main thing that you can do is just air dodge at the end, and that way it becomes a lot more difficult for them to actually edge guard you. So like now you can literally recover all the way out there, air dodge horizontally, and if they're not over here, then they can't even hit you. So use that to your advantage. Like if they need to be if they're not proactive, they're not going to edge guard that. That's basically what that new mix-up allows them to do. Also, this is exclusive to recovering low, is you can have the gunman out, so then that way they can cover a certain trajectory. If you get the sombrero gunman, that's going to be the absolute worst one you can get. You get that one, that basically covers your recovery there, depending on your distance. And the other thing too is the gunmen being so much stronger, they are able to cause those stage spikes, and then the percent's high enough, you even kill them too, like at 170, 160 maybe, if you get the orange coat, or somehow the sombrero one hits them. The one that you're probably going to want is orange coat. If they're DIing in, then they'll probably live, but if they DI out, it'll probably kill them. But the best one is actually going to be the black coat gunman. The reason why the black coat gunman is going to be the best one is that one sends you horizontally, so if they get hit by that, they're more likely going to get stage spiked by that. So overall, your recovery can literally look like this gunman and all that. So you literally have the gunman protecting you from them trying to aerial you. Then you have the can being sent towards them too. So if they get hit by the gunman, that could potentially hit them into the can, send them behind you while you get scot-free back to the ledge. So a lot of setups after that. If you have the time and the ability to set that up, most likely if you have a jump still, definitely go for that gunman, just because it's really good for covering yourself. Now let's say you're too low to recover. This is where the new mechanics of Duck Hunt Up B really come into play. Alright, so this is probably the most important section of the entire recovery guide, as this is something that I don't really see any Duck Hunt players take advantage of. Is one of the most unique abilities about Duck Hunt with his up B is being able to do any move out of it, as we talked about a lot. Most people air dodge back or something like that, but sometimes you're going to be in a position where you need to up B and you can't get your can out, and you're going to be in a position where you can't even air dodge back to the stage. Or you're even, let's say you're too far away and somebody's already coming off stage to edge guard you. So if you're not able to get out the can, don't ever be afraid about that, as you always have the ability to summon the can at any moment after those first 51 frames of your up B. So one of the beautiful things about can is that it is in fact frame 1, and it will always cancel out the knockback of any other move that hits it. So then that way, actually we can show that off right here. Let's put myself at 100%. So then that way you can see, and this way you can see the can knockback take priority over the fair that I'm about to get hit with. So can is frame 1, and that leads to a lot of beautiful things. And back in Smash 4 and even in this game, you can break out of basically any combos that aren't true at all. You can even like a frame 1 can out of Fox up air, though in Smash 4 it was a frame perfect timing, not so sure about as much in this game. And I was able to even do it out of things like out of Instapin too, which was one of the hardest ones to do, just because you needed to do that one frame perfectly, otherwise it wouldn't work. So in this case, you're up being, you weren't able to get your can out, but fear not, because now Lucina's going to fair. And now we're going to can with Duck Hunt. And there's the can, and then boom, you both blow up. And see, the can knockback takes priority. If I got hit by just the raw fare, I would have been sent horizontally. So in this case, you're able to extend your life, you're able to recover high, and you actually can have like a can rain down on them before you even get there. And if you still have your jump at this point too, then you have even more power to recover as well. The other thing that's important to note about Canicide is basically if you blow yourself up with can, you will always be able to live until 150%. Once you hit 150% when you blow yourself up with the can, that's when you have to be a little bit scared about just dying automatically. So when you do that, DI in, so you go straight up, so then that way you're able to live. And there are some moments where you will DI, where you will actually be knocked back in the same direction as your opponent, but that's very dependent on the move and a whole bunch of other factors that that one's really hard to gauge on when those moments will happen. But yeah, just remember, if you don't have a can out, you can up B and you can still just can out of anything. The second you know that they're just going to go up and hit you, just be ready to hit that B button and just save yourself immediately. Like, don't even worry about dying if you're not at that 150%. You are going to live no matter what, and that can is always going to guarantee it for you. With all of that said, that concludes this guide. So please do remember to protect yourself with those projectiles to cover your recovery. And remember, even if you don't have a can on you as you are using that up B, you are still able to save yourself by canning out of an opponent's attack. Please, please, please remember, you make sure that you remember that. And if you're at 100, if you're below 150%, you can still live no matter what. As always, guys, thank you guys so much for tuning in and supporting the show. And please do remember to check out this Come to Papa 3 compendium. As you guys should remember, Raito was the best Duck Hunt player that was playing in Smash 4. Now he has finally decided to go full-time with Duck Hunt once again. So this will be the first time we get a Japanese Duck Hunt player over to the States, and we can really see what type of damage he'll be able to do here. Definitely, we haven't been able to see too much of him play in Japan. Hopefully, by having him here, we'll have a lot more footage of him, and we'll have a lot more footage for you guys to study, and we'll just see, how he's fitting in with the metagame with one of our best players. So as always, once again, thank you guys for tuning in so much, and please do support those Come to Papa 3 compendiums and just everything else we do here on the Duck Hunt Discord and this channel. And as always, take care.